Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 1. Om, all hail to Almighty Vasudeva. Let us on that supreme truth meditate, who did from his power the world create, from whom the mighty elements evolve, on whom they rest, and into whom dissolve. Who is the self-dependent deity, the one possessed of omnipotency, who did the primal poet's heart infuse with sacred truths that still the wise confuse. In matter's flowing realm, the radiance of truth is shrouded by the influence of threefold illusion. The want of light is scattered hence by his radiance bright. Abandoning all virtue that deceives, this only one from malice free receives. This text proclaims sublime reality and grants all good fortune and sanctity. It uproots the great tree of triple pains, and the pure path of righteousness maintains. Having composed this text, the mighty seer hath made the Lord within the heart appear. Of any other text, what is the need? This holy Bhagavat persist to read. Ripe fruit from Scripture's wish-fulfilling tree, distilled from Shuka's lips eloquently. Drink deep this Bhagavat, pure rapture's store, ye connoisseurs on earth forevermore. In Naimisha Aranya's sacred wood, where always dwells the ever-wakeful god, Shonaka and a host of holy seers made sacrifice to last 1,000 years, to gain access into the blessed abodes of shining mansions of immortal gods. One day, having their matin duties sped, with pious care the holy fire was fed. The sages then addressed the worthy man Sutta, and thus with eloquence began. O sinless one, in learning most profound, who chronicles and histories expound, whose insight into Scripture doth excel, well have you heard, and justly can you tell. O worthy Sutta, whatever was known to holy teachers has to you been shown. Whatever Vyas and others have revealed hath not been from your holy self concealed. All that you know, O gentle one, and more, received from your good preceptor. Therefore, since you have served your divine master well, and graced by him, you are worthy to tell. We wish you a long life. Now therefore deign in all detail unto us explain, as you have ascertained and understood, how man may attain the ultimate good. In this contentious age of woe and strife, how short is the duration of man's life, whom indolence and misfortune assail, their undertakings always doomed to fail. So vast and varied in its diverse parts is Scripture and the lessons it imparts. Therefore that holy text expound to us, drawn from the store of your vast genius. Tell us, who are with ardent faith endued, how all beings may gain beatitude. O Sutta, all blessings on you. Pray tell the purpose of the Lord, for you know well why he was born of pious Devaki in Vasudeva's noble dynasty. To us, most eager and who long to hear the tidings of the Lord who hath no peer, recount his worthy deeds and wise intent when, incarnate, he made on earth descent, which full joy and ultimate welfare brings in vast abundance to all living things. Whoever calls his name e'en in distress, or in a state of utter helplessness, is certainly straightway from danger clear, for even fear himself holds him in fear. Sages, Sutta, who at those feet remain, straightway by their company remove stain, whereas Ganga sin can but wash away by bathing in her current every day. Who is there then that would not lend his ear the hallowed virtues of the Lord to hear, if he would sanctify his mind and be free from the foul pollution of Kali? Therefore his mighty deeds to us rehearse, which mystic bards and saints recount in verse, relate to us, endued with fervent zeal, how he his incarnations doth reveal. Now tell us of Hari's divine descent, O wise one, which all fortune doth augment, how he to his own power doth resort, and revels in sublime and playful sport. We never tire hearing of his fame, whose mighty deeds choicest verses acclaim. Those connoisseurs with an attentive ear at every step with fresh novelty hear. The wondrous deeds of Keshava relate, when he with Rama deigned to incarnate. What superhuman deeds did he perform, deceiving all in covert human form? We now perceive that Kali hath arrived. Thus in this sanctuary we have contrived a long and laborious rite to hold, and hear the fame of Hari thus extolled. You have indeed been sent by destiny, an helmsman guiding us across the sea, where Kali contentious now holds the sway, which takes man's virtues and good sense away. Moreover, we would also learn from you, when Krishna, the upholder of virtue, the lord of yogis and of Brahmins wise, withdrew his person far beyond the skies, where did virtue a stable refuge find, when Hari disappeared from humankind? Thus ends chapter 1 in book 1 of the great and glorious Bhagavat Purana, the text beloved of swan-like saints, sung by the son of Vyasa. Chapter 2. Now Veda Vyas of holy ones the best, continuing the theme, these words expressed. The son of Roma Harshan was inspired, hearing of what the sages had inquired. His heart with excess joy quite overran, and thus the sacred narrative began. Sutta said, I bow down to the sage who left his home without a sacred thread, alone to roam. And Dwaipayana, fraught with anxious care, cried, Oh, where art thou, my son, in despair? But the trees merely re-echoed his call, since his son knew the one who dwells in all. I bow to Vyasa's son, of vast insight, who bears of Scripture's essence the torchlight, whose sublime knowledge of the self bestows, whereby the soul can overcome all woes. For those in the transmigratory state, this text, compassionate, did iterate. The secret Purana that sanctifies, I bow to him, the teacher of the wise. First, having bowed to mighty Narayana, and Nara, best and foremost of all men, bow to the holy goddess eloquence, to Vyas, and let the narrative commence. O pious sages, questions you have raised are certainly to be most highly praised, since such themes as to Lord Krishna allude contribute to the soul's beatitude. Indeed, man's highest duty is to be devoted to Adhoksaja Hari, sans motive and without impediment, whereby the soul achieves supreme content. The yoga of devotion, when applied to mighty Vasudeva eschewing pride, engenders dispassion without delay, and doth the light of true wisdom display. A man may of his pious duty boast, but all his efforts are but labour lost. He finds no gain, finds no great reward for all his pains, if in his heart no deep affection gains for narratives of Vishvakshena's deeds, the one from whom the universe proceeds. For truly, pious duty to maintain is not undertaken merely for gain. Certes, the highest duty is not meant for worldly pleasure or emolument. Life is not meant desires to increase, and senses with their objects vain to please, but gain should be for life's necessity, and to make of the truth inquiry. The knowers of the truth such truth express as pure, indivisible consciousness, as Brahman and as Paramatma known, and Bhagavan, the illustrious one. The faithful and the wise and learned sage, with knowledge and with dispassion engage, and hearing with devotion love conceive, the self within the self they then perceive. Therefore, the prescribed duty for mankind, according to caste and status defined, O best of twice-born ones, ultimately is meant for the pleasure of Lord Hari. Therefore, with single-minded attention, one should hear and sing glorification. With contemplation he should be adored, who is the Sattvata's almighty Lord. Then, with the sword of meditation fond, one may sever of actions not the bond. What wise man, therefore, would not lend his ear, and with delight such wondrous exploits hear? From service rendered to great ones proceeds a taste for Vasudeva's wondrous deeds, who frequent sacred shrines with faith endued, O holy ones, attains beatitude. His own accounts to Krishna are most dear, which sanctify those who recount and hear, and in the hearts of those pious ones dwells, and as their well-wisher all taint dispels. When obstacles are mostly cleared away by serving the Bhagavat every day, awakens loving faith unwavering for the great one whom choicest verses sing. Then diminished are desire and greed, which from modes rajas and tamas proceed. The mind with peace of sattva is endued, and stablished in sublime beatitude. The mind established in beatitude by yoga of devotion thus pursued, the verity of wisdom then attains of the Almighty One, and freedom gains. When the self in the ruler is perceived, he is of doubts and misgivings relieved. The binding knot within the heart that dwells is cut, and the store of action dispels. Thus poets and devotees take delight the deeds of the Almighty to recite, since worship of Vasudeva the Lord to the self doth beatitude afford. Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, the gunas three, are assumed by the Supreme Deity, and thus the one into three parts divides, and each over each quality presides. Hari, resorting to Sattva, upholds. From Virinchi the creation unfolds, and when he the form of Hara assumes, with his power the universe consumes. Among these the form of Sattva sublime affords mankind beatitude divine. When the earth to wood to smoke rarefies, the fire is used for threefold sacrifice. Rajas, tamas are lower by degrees, through Sattva one the supreme Brahman sees. The ancient sages have always adored illustrious Adhokshaja, the Lord, whose existence, immaculate and free, is Sattva that transcends the gunas three. Thus those who seek the ultimate welfare in this world should ensue their way with care. The seekers of salvation shun the hosts of Bhuttapati's elemental ghosts, but worship the emanations sublime, sans envy, of Narayana divine. Those to Rajas and to Tamas confined perform worship according to their kind. The manes and elementals adore, for lordship, wealth, and offspring they implore. Vasudeva in the Vedas is shown. Vasudeva as the pure right is known. Vasudeva is the yoga supreme. Vasudeva as pure duty is seen. Vasudeva is high wisdom's decrees. Vasudeva is strict austerities. Vasudeva is righteousness sublime. Vasudeva is final goal divine. Although the Lord exists in his pure state, his inherent power doth generate, which in forms of cause and effect subsist, whence is projected all that doth exist. Thus, having projected the gunas three, nature divides in function by degree. He, entering the gunas three, sustains, yet in his transcendental state remains. As fire latent within wood inheres, and yet to burn variously appears, the world soul within all creatures doth dwell, yet he is one and indivisible. The soul thus, by guna's influence, endued with subtle faculty of sense, enters nature by the gunas produced, and to enjoy sense objects is induced. For these the Lord the universe projects, and by his sattva potency protects, and deigns to manifest incarnations among gods and men and brute creations. Thus ends chapter 2 in book 1 of the great and glorious Bhagavata Purana, the text beloved of swan-like saints, sung by the son of Vyasa. Chapter 3. Sutta said, in the beginning, the Almighty One assumes the Purusha for creation, whence cosmic intellect, with all the rest of 16 evolutes, is manifest. Thereafter, recumbent in mystic sleep, he lays him on the vast expansive deep. A lotus from his navel did emerge, whereon appeared Brahma, the demiurge. The whole wide world is thus conceived to be, resting on the form of the deity. But the illustrious always subsists, and in his supreme excellence exists. The yogins see with their perfected eyes the being of 1,000 feet and thighs, 1,000 arms, 1,000 faces bright, 1,000 heads, a most wonderful sight, thousands of ears and noses on each side, and thousands of bright eyes dilated wide. This being is the perennial seed, whence incarnations various proceed, who by his emanated parts creates and gods, men, and animals generates. In the first stage of the generation, the god brought forth into manifestation the juvenile sages of Brahma-born who did strictest austerities perform, observing pious rites with diligence and the vow of unbroken continence. The second descent for the world's welfare, the earth sunk in the abyss did uprear. Thus he the form of the wild boar assumes, and offerings of sacrifice consumes. Third, in the holy sage generation, takes as the godlike sage incarnation, who texts expounds, treating divinity, prescribing pious acts from motive free. Fourth, from the wife of Dharma he appears, as Nara and Narayana, the seers, who undertake arduous penances of self-control and restraint of senses. The incarnation fifth, well known to fame, was Lord of Siddhas, Kapila by name, who to Brahmin Asuri in his speech the lost doctrines of Sankhya deigned to teach. He appeared in his sixth incarnation from Anasuya as sage Atri's son. To Alarka and Prahlad did expound the transcendental mystery profound. During the Manu Swayambhuva's reign, did in his seventh incarnation deign to be born of the womb of Akuti, begot by the progenitor Ruchi, and ruled the gods as Yagya, known to fame, whose gods' attendants were as Yamas by name. The Supreme Lord of mighty strides revered, in the eighth from Meru Devi appeared, and royal Nabi, thence did demonstrate the path honoured by each class and estate. Beseeched by holy sages of high worth, his ninth descent as ruler of the earth, milked out of earth her herbs, her hidden hoard, and thus her lavish bounty was restored. During the reign of Chakshusha, the world was in the flood of devastation hurled. Rescue of Vaivaswat to accomplish, he towed the ark in form of mighty fish. When gods and demons churned the milky main, they used as rod the Mandara mountain. In the 11th did as turtle sport, and on his shell the mountain did support. The 12th was Dhanvantari, the revered. Then in the 13th descent he appeared as Mohini, and the demons deceived, and from her hands the gods nectar received. The 14th descent was the man-lion, who boldly countered the mighty demon, and took him on his lap, and with his nails tore out his heart, and scattered his entrails. With ease, as when a weaver with his reeds tears into strips according to his needs. The 15th was little Vamanahite, who begged at Bali's sacrificial rite, and sought 3 steps according to his tread, but took all the 3 worlds from him instead. Then, in his 16th incarnation, he, enraged at royal arrogance to see, 3 times 7 the kings did devastate, and from the earth did princes extirpate. Then, in his 17th incarnation, as Satyavati and Parashara's son, he drew into branches the Veda tree, observing man's diminished faculty. As a godlike king, he assumed a form, on the gods' behalf exploits to perform. Exhibiting heroic prowess, he had built a causeway spanning the great sea. In the 19th and 20th descent, made in the Vrishni dynasty the advent, as Rama and Krishna, the brothers twain, and lightened earth of her burden and pain. Thereafter, when Kali has just begun, in Kikata's realm as Anjana's son, will be born as Buddha, those to delude who bear to gods an hateful attitude. When the juncture of the Yuga arrives, to be born of Vishnu Yasa contrives, when rulers are thieves and degenerates, the avenger, Lord Kalki, incarnates. The descents of Hari are beyond count, O twice-borns, sprung from perennial fount. The existential repository flows in 1,000 streams perpetually. Sages, gods, Manus, and Manu's great sons, the great and puissant and the mighty ones, the progenitors, great Prajapati, are all the emanations of Hari. All these are parts and portions and aspects of the Almighty who the world protects from Indra's foes, but Krishna is the Lord from age to age, incarnate and adored. Whoever the mysterious birth reads of the illustrious one's wondrous deeds, attentively with love both morn and eve, relief from the heap of grief will receive. All these forms of the illustrious one, uncircumscribed nor limited by form, are on the conscious self superimposed, of gunas and of evolutes composed. As when clouds gather in the firmament, the sky is obscured to the ignorant, even so on the pure soul they impute superimposition of attribute. Beyond this manifestation revealed by gunas is the existence concealed, the unseen and unheard reality whence the soul is born repeatedly. The gross and subtle form imposed, forsooth, are negated by knowledge of the truth, and when the soul from ignorance is free, the supreme absolute Brahman can see. If and when the divine Maya subsides, the soul is graced with knowledge and abides in his inherent glory transcendent, and is endued with pure enlightenment. Thus poets sing the births and deeds of worth of him who has no agency nor birth, and praise him who is the Lord of the heart, the mystery Vedas rarely impart. He doth create, sustain, and then withdraw. The universe in play, sans taint or flaw. He dwells within the recess of the heart of all creatures, independent, apart. The master of 6 divine qualities, and ruler of the 6 sense faculties. As the spectator cannot recognize an actor in a play through his disguise, a fool can never comprehend, forsooth, by exercise of mind or speech, the truth. Even so his names and his rare beauty the ignorant are unable to see. He alone, who without duplicity adores the lotus-like feet constantly, and imbibes the fragrance whereof with zeal, can know him who in his hand bears the wheel, the Creator whose glory exceeds of most astonishing heroic deeds. O holy ones, ye are most fortunate, since love and knowledge thus ye cultivate for Vasudeva, universal Lord, who is the one beloved and adored. For who doth such eagerness entertain will never suffer to be born again. This sacred Purana of supreme light is as the holy Bhagavatam hight, which the divine exploits of him rehearse, whose glories are praised in exquisite verse, composed by the illustrious seer, which grants ultimate benefit to hear, and having been to the world manifest, it is fortunate, auspicious, and blessed. He had his son, with wisdom to discern this holy text, to memorize and learn, endued with self-knowledge and reverence of all the Vedas, the extracted essence. Then he, the son, this holy text did sing to Parikshit, the great and worthy king, who sat down fasting by the Ganga's tide, surrounded by great sages on each side. When Krishna to his own realm did repair, he took virtue and knowledge with him there. With insight lost, now Kali hath begun. This Purana hath risen like the sun. O Vipras, there, as the sage did recite, I also heard with wonder and delight. While seated there, attentive to his word, by his favour the narrative I heard. Whatever I have learned in my study, I shall relate. Now hear of that from me. Thus ends chapter 3 in book 1 of the great and glorious Bhagavat Purana, the text beloved of swan-like saints, sung by the son of Vyasa.